Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining me to chat about what we're seeing in the market at the moment, both from the candidates and clients that we're seeing and actively working with, but also some of the wider market trends. What would you say we're seeing in the wider market at the moment?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, at the end of last year, we saw a lot of doom and gloom predictions. FinTech was being very badly hurt. I think the tech sector overall, we were seeing a lot of very high volume layoffs that were happening. Specifically in the cryptocurrency sector, you saw a lot of companies really being hit by that. And I think not all of that doom and gloom that was spoken of at the time has come to bear, fortunately. Certainly from the staffing perspective, I think we're still seeing robust hiring trends over the first half of this year, and even some of the data that's been coming out has been, I think, more positive than expected. We're still seeing a very strong labor market. Still, seeing good labor numbers. The report that came out last month wasn't, quite as high as everyone was hoping. I think it was just over 200,000 jobs that the economy added, but still, still chugging along and a lot better than what people had been thinking would happen. We've been seeing wage growth numbers go up. A big report that came out relatively recently was that inflation is still trending downwards, and it's now lowest levels in the past 2 years when it was, very high, during the pandemic. So that's all, trending in the right direction. And I saw that Goldman Sachs, even just in the past week, had kind of reevaluated their predictions about the economy going into recession over the next 12 months. And they're lowering their expectations on those predictions now too. So it had looked kind of negative, coming into this year, but we haven't seen that, fortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with everything that you're saying. I think on the whole, we are seeing still some concerns amongst job seekers, employees, people on the whole. The rising cost of living, or the continued rising cost of living, particularly in large cities, New York being one of those. And I think despite there being a lot less layoffs than we saw at the end of 2022, I think there's still that fear amongst people that, is my job secure? And that element of caution is still there. However, I think the doom and gloom that you mentioned from last year has been followed by a period of what feels like stability in many ways. And I think a lot of people are finding that quite encouraging and kind of puts their mind at ease that hopefully we're kind of out of the woods in many respects.
Definitely. And, I think we're certainly experiencing a more robust July, even summer in general. Usually in staffing, you see a bit of a drop off in the summer as hiring managers go on vacation, candidates are on vacation, with things generally picking up more actively as we get into the fall. But I've been pleasantly surprised to see that we're still getting new requirements from clients coming in, even in the middle of July when it's usually quite quiet. And I think that's promising for maybe the level of activity we'll see, as we get into September.
For sure, yes. I think we've definitely seen an unpredictable market since early 2020, really since the beginning of the pandemic. But to me, things do feel like they are the most settled and stable that they have been since then. Throughout the last few years, it's felt like every time we turn a corner, we're confronted with a new obstacle. But things seem certainly much calmer at the moment, and I'm really hopeful that that's going to continue throughout 2023 and beyond that as well. I did mention about caution just a little bit before. That's definitely something that we are seeing in the market at the moment with a lot of our clients. It can be anything from, slower interview processes, additional rounds in interviews or assessments, an increase in temp and contract hires as well. And really that speaks to this idea of, or the feeling that we don't really know what could be next. What we were expecting to happen didn't really materialize. And I think that's left a lot of people questioning, okay, well, where do we go from here? What is next for us? So, ensuring that you feel, 110% sure about a candidate before you hire them, or making the decision to bring someone on as a temp to hire or a contractor or something like that, I think just makes people feel a bit more comfortable knowing that in case something happens in the future, we do fully enter into a recession or budgets get cut for one reason or another, they haven't made a huge, they haven't overcommitted. And what we saw a lot throughout really the last few years was, particularly in the tech sector, overhiring. And then what we've seen as this kind of idea of right sizing this year. And it's been painful for a lot of people who maybe switched jobs, got promised some great things. And that caused a lot of, pain for a lot of people. And I think companies now acknowledge that happened. And I think, if anything, probably feel cautious in not wanting to allow that to happen again. But all in all, I think, things feel settled, things feel stable. So I'm really hopeful that will continue through. And, we'll get back to what feels like more of a normal market. Are there any other major trends that you're seeing, John, in the market at the moment?
Sure. And also just to pick up on what you were saying, I think on the candidate side of things, I find that I'm seeing, partly because of what you said, with this caution that employers are, exercising right now and not being quite ready to make that full commitment on a permanent hire. There are some hiring freezes at some major firms, and they're just having people on an ongoing kind of temp relationship as they kind of wait and see what's going on in the future. That's made some rather, strong candidates be, kind of on the market for those permanent positions again, and having conversations with, some candidates with, very nice resumes, very prestigious organizations that they've been with, who normally wouldn't be having a conversation with a recruiter because they're at this prestigious bank or what have you, and are nicely set up there, but because there's some question marks about permanent hires at some of these organizations, that allows us to speak with them about permanent opportunities with some of our clients, when normally those candidates might be harder to access at a time like this. And then in terms of other trends, I would say that the hybrid and remote situation that was talked a lot about in the pandemic is still an omnipresent thing in hiring. And we're still seeing that as really an absolute prerequisite on candidates' part. I am hard pressed to think of a job that I've been staffing where there isn't at least some degree of hybrid work associated with it. And I think that really represents a shift. I think the pandemic really did a pivot how employers and employees, think about the work week, and that flexibility, I think, is an aspect that's here to stay. Certainly, the fully remote positions are, increasingly rare. You're not seeing that anywhere near at the levels as we did when we were kind of right in the pandemic. But they still come along from time to time. And when they do, boy, are they ever popular. And even to the point, which is really surprising, people, and this might be interesting from, employers to, understand, is that, we do see candidates who are more flexible in their salary requirements when you have that fully remote position, because that's, such a big trade-off that candidates are, happy to make with, getting back those hours in the day that they might have spent commuting or whatnot, and having that time to be at home, be with family. It's something that's of high value to them. And interestingly, candidates will apply for a job where ordinarily I would have thought not even to reach out to them, because I didn't think it was quite at their salary level. But that fully remote aspect is such an attractive quality to it, that an employer can get quite a strong candidate at a little bit less than what the market would ordinarily require for that employee.
We're not just talking about small salary cuts here. I think people are realizing how difficult it is to come by those fully remote roles now, and we've seen people willing to take cuts to the tune of 20, 30 plus $1,000 a year of their salary in order to have that remote role, which is definitely not something that I would have predicted, but it's interesting nonetheless.
So overall, what we can say is, we've seen economy still chugging along, despite what those predictions were. We're having certainly a more active, July than was expected, which is all very positive. And certainly on the hybrid remote situation, where the more and more we go along, that's definitely seeming like that is a permanent fixture of how employment is going to be.